closing the frontier. Now, first thing, I do want to just show you something, as this is going to be something that we're going to be using going forward here. So the first part about this, don't worry about writing this down. I just want to show you a few things. This right here is a map of the United States in the 1860s going into the 1870s. Now, first off, I just want you guys to tell me just kind of what do you see, what do you notice, just sort of what stands out about this map. What do you see with this? What do you see? Yes, Ethan.
The whole Midwest is a territory.
Okay, I'm glad we start there. We have this gigantic chunk right in here that's not even states yet. They're territories. Now, we have a few different rules as to what it takes for a territory to become a state. One of them is population. So I want to look at the second question here. Based on this, where would you say the population is located? Where are all the people? What do you see? Yes, Grant?
East Coast and the middle, east.
Sure, absolutely. Biggest chunk of our population, even today, is still in the Eastern time zone. Now, roughly about 35% of our population today is still in the Eastern time zone. As we start trickling westward, we go to the Midwestern states. Today, we have about 30% of our population is going to be in the Central time zone. Now we keep going westward, but there's something else I want to point out. Why do we have two states on the West Coast here, but none of this filled in, do you think? What do you guess you think?
Well, A, they wanted to get all the way to the Pacific Ocean.
Okay.
B, the gold rush.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that. So let me ask you first. Based on this, have we completed Manifest Destiny? No. We do have a couple states on the Pacific Coast, but we still have all this to really fill in. Now, Ethan, you're kind of one step ahead of me with the gold rush. We're going to talk about that more in a little bit. So here's the deal I want to ask you. Our lovely state of Colorado is in the Mountain Time Zone. Do you happen to know what percentage of our population lives in the Mountain Time Zone now? Take a shot. What do you think? What do you think? Andrew, what do you think? 17? 20? 5? 10? About 8% of the population is in our time zone. But it's the best time zone in America. I might be a little biased, but it's true. Now here's the deal. We're going to look today about some opportunities that exist in this part of the country. But I left you guys last week, we were talking about something. Anyone ever been to Kansas? Graham, what were you doing in Kansas?
I have family there.
Have family there? Okay. Nebraska. Ever been to Nebraska? Andrew, what were you doing there?
On my way to Chicago.
Okay, so you were wasting time there? Okay, all right, fantastic. Ethan, something else?
I was on my way to Mount Rushmore.
Okay, so going somewhere else? Okay, all right. I ask again, how would you describe the lovely states of Kansas, Nebraska? Boring. What else? What's there? Yes, Ethan?
Fields.
Fields, open fields. Fields of what?
Grass.
Wheat, grass, corn. Okay, we all got there. This is the opportunity that exists out in the Midwestern states. Now, I got to tell you, now is when you got to start writing these things down. I used just this first picture to set up kind of what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be talking about the further movement west. Now, we have been talking ever since the beginning about how we started trickling westward, the Mexican-American War, we keep going westward. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the opportunities that exist out west. Now, I say they're opportunities because, to be perfectly honest, what's going on in the western states doesn't necessarily exist anywhere else in the world. It's an opportunity to change your life, to be a millionaire overnight. If you know what you're doing and you have the courage to do it. Now, I will tell you this, just something about me. I have a friend of mine who is always very, very sharp. He started this business. And I remember when he started this business, I said, that's never going to work. You're an idiot. And he goes, I don't know, I just believe it. I think it's going to work. Come on, that's really dumb. Don't do that. He did it. And for a while he had zero success. And I remember this because he told me, he goes, every night I have zero money, so I have ketchup sandwiches for dinner. And I was like, that's bad. Like, your business failed. What was that?
Is he a millennial?
He's right on the line. This guy invested all his money in pets.com. Have you ever heard of pets.com? I'm not surprised. It was doing nothing until it started doing something. Until it started going up and up and up. This guy succeeded fantastically. And then he sold all his shares and was a millionaire. Now, I was asking about it. I said, what was the hardest part? He goes, the hardest part is, one, taking the chance. Because I knew it was a gamble. I knew it was tough. The second hardest part was trusting myself. Was looking at what was going on and saying, it's bad now, but it's going to get better. And I thought to myself, that's a really good lesson. But how do you know? And he just responded to me. I'll always remember. She goes, I never knew. I just believed. I thought, good for you. That's a tough thing to do. Same thing at this time. We're going to see people that are in the eastern part of the United States that are told there are opportunities out west, but you've got to risk everything. Sell all your worldly possessions. Go across the country. Hopefully you'll even make it. And if you make it there, you can succeed. But you got to know what you're doing and you got to believe. Out west we have three big things. We're going to see opportunity in ranching, mining, and farming. Now we're going to talk about all three, but I want to do ranching first. Now before we really get into this opportunity, I want to ask you guys, when I say this word ranching, just kind of what comes to mind? If you're a rancher, what does this entail, would you say? What do you think? Brendan, what would you say?
You grow like cattle.
Yeah, absolutely. So not agriculture. You're raising livestock. Cattle's one, sure. What else do you think about? Yes, Ethan?
Well, I think about just animals.
So let's build upon that. We got cattle as one. What do you kind of envision as like other animals?
Horses.
You're eating horses?
No,
Oh, I certainly hope not.
No, you're like using them to sell.
So you need the
To
horses.
sell.
Yeah, absolutely. Horses are one. What else did you think about with livestock then? What was it? I heard something. Yes, Andrew? Sheep can be big business too. Now we're going to talk about that as well. Zoe, was there something else? You can do that, absolutely. Now I'll tell you this, that's going to be a little bit later on, but bison right now can be real big business. Now I'm going to really focus on a couple of things here because the biggest bang for your buck comes with cattle. If you're going to raise cattle, you need to know what you're doing. But I will say this, cattle are mildly intelligent in that they kind of understand the herd mentality. Now let me say this too. Have you guys ever stood next to like a full-grown cow? Never done that before? Okay. All right. Andrew, you have?
I think so.
Okay. Now, I'm not talking about like the petting zoo cow. I'm talking about like a full-on head of cattle. I will tell you this, kind of a long story short. My family owns a herd of cattle, and they're very accessible. Standing next to a giant cow is sort of a weird feeling because they're huge, but very docile. And you can tip them over. But that's a lesson for another day. Oh, great. It looks like you've done this before, Grant. Okay. All right. Now, cows in and of their own right need really three big things. They need grass, they need space, and they need water. Now, let's kind of look at the map here. In this area right here that we're talking about, is there grass there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Is there space?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If you're going to raise a calf from calf to full-grown adult, it takes about 10 square acres of grassland. That's how much they eat. So you better have that much space so they grow. What about water?
Not a lot there.
Not a whole lot of water in the western part of the U.S. You got to be careful about where you're going to be raising these cattle. Now again, if you know what you're doing, this is all but the perfect place to raise cattle. There's plenty of space, there's plenty of grass, and there's some water. Now during this time period, we have what's called the open range system, where there are basically no fences. Cows can roam wherever they want and simply eat up all this grass. These cows become gigantic, big, fat, and delicious. But now you've got kind of a new problem. If you're a successful rancher out west and you're raising these big, fat cows, we'll even say like in eastern Colorado, your problem now is you have these big, fat cows, but there's no one to buy them. Where are all the people?
East.
They're east. So you got to get your cow east. What's one option you have to get your cows to the people, do you think? Andrew, what do you think?
Just like, four of them, and then you call them cowboys.
Yeah. You got to drive them east, right? You got to walk them from Colorado out to the East Coast. Does anyone see a potential problem with that? What happens to your big, fat, delicious cows? Yes, Ethan?
Will they get skinny?
Yeah, they get skinny. So you need a new option. Yes, Ethan?
Don't you just like kill them and then ship the meat
How do you ship the meat?
in a train?
So why don't you just put them in the train and ship them east? Then slaughter them. Now you're absolutely right, because the railroad is going to change this. The railroad is the solution to the problem. We just need to get the railroad out there. Now by the 1860s, 1870s, most of the rail lines are basically right in this area here. We've talked about it. There's some in the south, not a whole lot, but it's starting to go west. If you can get your big, fat, delicious cows to either Kansas or Missouri, there are rail lines there that can ship them east. With the railroad comes the opportunity. If you can just raise your cows out west and then ship them east, you can become a millionaire. Now, I want to give you just kind of a comparison here. This happened, this was a few years ago, many years ago actually. My family owns this herd of cattle and prices were down. So we thought, you know what? We will go ahead and slaughter one of the cows and we're going to take a quarter of it. 1/4 of this gigantic cow, we slaughtered and we made steaks out of it and ground beef and everything. Filled up an entire freezer. We ate that cow for literally like 2 years. 1/4 of it. That entire cow sold for about $5,000. So my family share about $1,200. That's one cow. The herd that we own now is about 200 head of cattle. Would you like to do the math on that? 200 head of cattle times about $5,000 a head.
Like 10,000, no, 100,000.
It's a lot of money in cattle. Now, there's other good news about cattle. If you have a herd of about 200, you can, every year, slaughter however many you want. And the great thing about cows is they reproduce. So you can slaughter some, let the herd reproduce, and then
Get more.
slaughter more. This can be big business. Now, you better know what you're doing and you better be able to risk it. This is an opportunity that exists out west that doesn't happen anywhere else. But it's not just ranching. Mining can be big business too. Now, I will tell you this. Mining is a gamble. In fact, it's a huge gamble because odds are very against you.